Fala, gurizada, bora tomar um cafezinho? Para quem não sabe, sou o David. Sou investidor de criptomoedas. O projeto do momento é a RIPOXRP. Se você é novo no canal, cara, seja muito bem-vindo. Se inscreva, deixa esse like, que isso me ajuda muito na plataforma do YouTube. Cara, eu vou tentar dar um gás aqui para que hoje o vídeo vai ser um pouco longo. Esse vídeo, na verdade, era para ser de ontem. Só que ontem não estava disponível no vídeo a opção de legenda. Hoje já estava. O Fábio me mandou. Valeu, Fábio. Fui lá, olhei e estava disponível. Não sei o porquê, de repente, como se tratava de um podcast, a entrevista era longa, deve ter algum processo para poder ativar a legenda no vídeo. Então, se tu é novo no canal, se inscreva, deixa aquele like na descrição do vídeo, cara. Tem ali o nosso grupo do Telegram para te entrar. A única coisa que tu tem que fazer é instalar o Telegram no teu celular ou computador, notebook, e clicar no link ali e entrar no grupo. Eu não cobro nada, já estamos com 122 membros. Se tu quiser entrar, seja muito bem-vindo. A única coisa que eu peço lá é umas regrinhas básicas lá para não virar bagunça. A principal de todas é respeito entre os integrantes. Eu não quero debate lá dentro, nunca teve, graças a Deus. E sim na pegada de adquirir conhecimento. Toda vez que tem uma live no canal, eu jogo lá para o pessoal do Telegram também, além das notificações do YouTube. Tu fazendo parte do grupo do Telegram, tu vai estar sempre por dentro das notícias. Eu acabei de lançar um cafezinho, foi o cafezinho anterior, para vir com esse. Pode ver que o outro deu bem rápido, deu acho que uns 12, 13 minutos. Esse vai dar um pouco mais longo, mas cara, pega quando tu tiver tempo e olha, mano. Sei que às vezes é cansativo, acelera um pouco o vídeo, mas não tem como eu ficar pulando e resumindo, cara. Então tu vai pegar, não vai pegar a formação inteira. Vai pegar pedaço e não vai conseguir depois assimilar o que está acontecendo. Cara, acabou de entrar aqui um integrante, um Wellington Lombardi. Seja bem-vindo, Wellington. Até vou dar umas boas-vindas aqui para ele. Coincidência, hein? Aí o pessoal é bem receptivo. Então, pode ver, cara, é só instalar o Telegram, entrar lá e vir fazer parte da família. Cara, isso aqui era para ser de ontem. Saiu ontem, isso aqui não tinha opção da tradução. Cara, hoje teve. Pode ver, tá até diferente, tá em partes, ó. Isso aqui é uma coisa que o pessoal lá nos Estados Unidos viu, foi um podcast com o Deaton. Não conhece, cara, ele tá nos representando. Eu tenho orgulho de dizer que eu preenchi a lista lá, velho, dele, para ele poder me representar. Ele está representando nós, investidores de varejo, e ele vai falar o que está acontecendo, cara, a real. Então, por isso que eu digo, acelera o vídeo, vai olhando por partes. Cara, aqui eu não tenho como pular isso aqui, cara, é tudo coisa interessante o que ele vai falar. Ele está por dentro do processo, ele está nos representando, ele está fazendo parte. Então, vamos ver o que ele vai dizer, cara. Lá bombou esse podcast aqui, um monte de gente interagindo, ó. Muita gente interagindo com eles lá. E fora os comentários. Aí, ó. Cara, o americano tem outra pegada em investimento, não adianta. Vamos ver então, cara. Para quem não sabe de onde Deaton, dá uma pesquisada no Twitter, tu vai entender quem é ele. Já tem vídeos no canal falando de quem ele é. Cara, ele é o nosso advogadão aí, tá nos representando contra a SEC. Então, cara, eu vou aumentar um pouquinho a velocidade, senão vai demorar muito, né, gurizada? Eu vou ver o que for interessante, que é 1h55. Tem que ir pulando, mas a gente vai assistir junto aí nessa empreitada de estudar. Bora pro vídeo então, play. John Deaton ao vivo num podcast.
And the SEC has refused to turn any of these documents over. They're claiming they're privileged. And they're claiming they're privileged, Pat, even though they claim...
Desde o início aqui, pra não ter... Saiu nesse aqui.
That's fantastic, man. We are live? Okay, today's guest, I just want to tell you who today's guest is. Today's guest is John E. Deaton, former Marine. In the Marines, he was a lawyer, okay, in the Marines. He comes out, he starts falling in love for the concept of crypto, give or take. He's interested in what's going on with the technology and the coin. And then from there, when the SEC goes after XRP Ripple, I think December of last year is when they open up the case, John E. Deaton is now representing 62,000 XRP holders, of which 1,000 of them own other coins as well. A lot of people on Twitter were saying, you and I got to get together, and we finally were able to make it work. So if you're somebody that's following crypto, if you own Bitcoin, if you own Ethereum, if you own Ripple, if you own anything, you probably want to pay attention to this. And we're aware that a lot of the XRP community is going to be here because there's a cult-like following with that community. So thanks for having you on, man.
Thank you for
Thanks for coming on.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so having said that, before we get into it, can you get some of the guys to give me an iPad charger here? Because this thing literally died because I've been watching a bunch of his interviews. So, John, what's going on, okay, currently right now with the SEC case against Ripple? We have a bunch of notes.
Cara, vou ter que deixar devagar isso aqui.
Here, but bring everybody up to date on what's going on right now with the lawsuit.
Well, right now we're waiting on a couple big decisions from the judge. There's a decision, a motion to strike Ripple's fair notice defense, and a motion, the most important motion, I believe, because I think the fair notice one is going to be an easy one for them to decide. It is the internal documents at the SEC, their documents on Bitcoin, their documents on Ethereum. There's even a document dated 2018, June 13th, 2018, on evaluating XRP and whether it's a security, and the SEC has refused to turn any of these documents over. They're claiming they're privileged, and they're claiming they're privileged, Pat, even though they claim that they've never made an official declaration on Bitcoin or Ethereum. They've actually rescinded Bill Hinman's speech on June 14th, 2018, where he said, look, Ether's no longer a security. Bitcoin's not a security. They've all walked away from that. And so that's why this case is so important. If the SEC is successful, I can guarantee you Gary Gensler is coming after Ether potentially. And
Gary Gensler está indo atrás do Ethereum. Assimilou? John Deaton Falando.
Not so much Bitcoin, but every other altcoin.
So there's three audiences you're talking to today. So I just want to kind of give you this perspective so you know as you're communicating. The typical audience you talk to, they're all crypto community. So when you drop in names and all this stuff, they know, right? Yeah. So when you drop in verbiage, they know. When you're saying certain things, they know. Today's community is consisted of those who are XRP, Ripple, which you're very comfortable talking to them. Number two, it's the community on the crypto side that don't own XRP, but they own Bitcoin and Ethereum. And they're concerned about what's going to happen with you because, not you, they're concerned what's going to happen with this case because we know Gary is hired and appointed, I think, February 3rd of this year by Kamala and Biden as the SEC chair. And he used to be the Commodity Futures Trade Commission under Obama before. And then prior to that, he was under Clinton. So he's a full-blown Democrat. Absolutely. They know it. And we know Kamala, Biden, one of the game plans that they had is there was a couple things that we're not comfortable about is why they brought Gary in. Gary is not a fan of SPACs. They're trying to a little overregulate SPACs. You're aware of that because last year there was about $100 billion of money raised for SPACs the last 24 months. So SPACs are on the up and come. They've been around for a while, but it's been a lot of momentum lately. And the other thing they're worried that they cannot regulate is why they brought Gary in is cryptocurrency. They would like to figure out a way to make crypto a security because if they do, they can now control it. They can now, regulate it. They can do a lot of different things. So for the audience that has no clue what's going on, okay, no clue what's going on.
O Biden trouxe o Gary para tentar ajustar uma coisa que o governo não sabe, cara. O governo não sabe nem por onde começar. Então, cara, é o que eu digo, o que sair lá, a regulamentação vai ser base para todos os governos. Cara, eu tô com mania de ficar com a caneta na mão, cara. Sei lá, peguei esse hábito agora para falar. Cara, ele tentou chegar uma pessoa ali competente, velho. Mas, infelizmente, não conseguiu. O cara não soube administrar a situação da melhor forma possível. Agora, ele vai ter que ser sujeito... homem para ver que ele reconheceu, ser sujeitinho homem para ver que ele errou e vai ter que ajeitar a parada aí, cara, para eles. Então vamos ver.
Let's go through your initial passion on why you, as a former Marine lawyer who's extremely skeptical, Marinha, why did you all of a sudden say, look, man, I want to see what's going on here with crypto. This is kind of interesting to me. What was appealing to you?
All right, well, First thing I did,
Vamos ver por que o John Deaton resolveu entrar em criptografia na XRP.
I did what a lot of people do. I read the Bitcoin white paper.
Okay.
Fell in love with the concept of cryptocurrency, bought Bitcoin, bought Ethereum, bought XRP, and just sort of went a firm believer. You know, I think you said in an episode, 40% of all U.S. dollars printed in the last, year?
Yep, 18 months.
It's staggering.
Yep.
And so looking at it as an alternative, a hedge on inflation, or just an alternative to fiat currency that's being debased every day, right? So that's what got me involved. What got me involved in this suit, Pat, was I'm just an investor. I'm not a securities lawyer, believe it or not. I'm actually amicus counsel in the biggest securities case since 1946, and I've been practicing securities law for about 9 months, right? But when I read the complaint as an XRP holder, I learned that the case was filed. I was expecting to see what you always see in these securities cases, that the SEC would say, you know what, Brad Garlinghouse, you know what, Ripple, when you sold XRP in 2013 to 2015 on this specific transaction on that specific day, that was an unregistered security. And that's what I expected. First paragraph, XRP itself is a digital asset security, and it's an unregistered security from the very beginning of time until today. So according to the SEC, including the secondary market, Pat, if I go right now and I buy XRP from Uphold, and I don't have any idea of Ripple, they're saying that's an unregistered security. And so it's something very different. They're attacking
trying to set a precedent against
the token itself. And the case, the seminal case that they go off is this case called Howey from the Supreme Court in 1946. It involved orange groves. And the SEC never said, or the Supreme Court never said, the oranges are the securities. They said the scheme and the marketing and the packaging, the way that the company sold it, that was an unregistered securities offering. They didn't say the tracts of land were the security. They didn't say the oranges were the security. The underlying instrument, Pat, is never the security. It's the way you offer it and package it. But in this particular case, they went after the token. And Pat, for 8 years, it was sold in the United States and worldwide, 200 exchanges. They allowed Ripple to purchase 9% of MoneyGram. They had a settlement with FinCEN in 2015 where they called it digital convertible virtual currency. This was being allowed to go on and on and on. And all of a sudden, the former SEC chairman, Jay Clayton, on his last day, as he's walking out the door, slaps this lawsuit, the most significant SEC enforcement action, in my opinion, in modern history in a non-fraud case, and goes after the token. And there's so many conflicts of interest that we're going to get into. Jay Clayton was just on TV today on CNBC, and they asked him again, what about these conflicts that everyone is calling you out on? And he's like, I'm not going to talk about it because it's pending litigation. There's no pending litigation over your ethics, right? But he refuses to answer these questions, stuff we're going to get into.
Yeah. So and by the way, the current the case against SEC, doesn't XRP have like some of the most incredible team right now? The former SEC chairman is one of their representatives. Who do they have on their team right now? Who's Ripple have on their team right now?
It's outstanding.
Yeah, that's what
Mary
people
Jo
need to know.
White. Mary Jo White, former SEC chairwoman.
Former SEC chairwoman is on
their team.
Yeah.
Former director of enforcement, a guy named Andrew Seresny, who was the director of enforcement, is their lead trial attorney.
This is Ripple's.
Yeah.
And they also have on their team former SEC person in charge of New York's office, and they actually have someone who used to be the director of corporation and finance on their team. Ripple has an all-star team as far as defending this case.
So let's
Cara, tu viu como é que a Ripple se defendeu, cara? Ele chamou um cara lá de dentro da SEC para defender eles, cara. E eles acharam que ia ganhar. O cara foi um dos presidentes. Ele não é bobo, cara. Acordão, velho. Essas coisas eu não sabia, cara. Por isso que eu digo, se tiver um tempinho, olha, vai esclarecer muitas coisas, muitas dúvidas.
Let's talk about the devil's advocate. Okay, the folks who are right now saying, well, Ripple deserves this because behind closed doors they were doing X, Y, Z. And for the way Ripple was formatted, if I remember, 80% of they had 100 billion, right? Is it 100 billion total? Am I saying it correctly? Of which 80% they gifted, 20% they kept, right? Today's market cap is around $37 billion. The fully diluted will be around $80 billion. That's kind of where they are today.
Correct.
With numbers. So some people from the other side say, well, listen, these guys were kind of doing a pump and dump type of stuff behind closed doors
market
and market manipulation. And because there's no regulation, they can kind of do this. And, they used to say that also about John McAfee. John McAfee would say, it's going to this, it's going to this, it's going to this. So it would go up, he would sell. Then he would tell people not to sell. And I don't know whether he did this or not, but that was a lot of criticism because we had McAfee on as well.
Well, one of the big things that, we talk in the crypto community, our guys are like, we love Ripple, the technology. We love Ripple, the coin. We love what it can do for, international, money transactions. Hate the people who created it. So like that seems to be.
Why is that though? Why are people saying that though?
Well, I think because when you compare it to like Bitcoin, right? There was no pre-mine with Bitcoin. And you had people allegedly could fairly mine for it, and it was open and it was decentralized from the beginning. They believe that these executives are enriching themselves. But my answer to that question is, okay, go after Brad Garlinghouse. Go after Ripple. Why are you going after the token? Why are you 8 years after the fact?
Why are you going after the teacher that put, $500 in the Ripple?
Exactly. I've never met Brad Garlinghouse, never met Chris Larson, never met any of the people at Ripple. I'm no Ripple fan.
Those two names that just so if people don't know, they're founders. I think Chris is the one that founded Ripple Labs, right? He's one of the co-founders as well. Yeah.
Yes. And they were sued independently. Now the thing about it, Pat, is in this case, after a 30-month investigation, the SEC didn't actually allege fraud. They investigated Ripple for 30 months. There's no fraud alleged. It is a strict securities violation. You didn't give proper disclosures when you made these transactions. And I say, fine, go after them. All right? I'm not here to defend them.
Dizendo, cara, tu quer ir atrás do Brad Garlinghouse, do Chris Larson, vai. Mas a questão do token, nunca falaram nada, e agora pegaram no pé do token, não dos caras. Agora que estão levantando a hipótese deles.
They've got way better lawyers than me, right, to defend them. But what you're doing, when you go after the token itself in the secondary market, right, let me tell you something, and I know this because I've been communicating with 60,000 people. It is an absolute fact that the first-time purchasers of XRP, 58.2% of them had never heard of the company Ripple. They've heard Ripple, the name, but they never heard of a company.
58% have never heard of Ripple.
When they first
bought it. I got you.
Pure speculation.
Yeah, you know what they do? Listen, you go on. It was the number 3 for a while. It was number 2. Market cap, but it's the top 3 market cap.
Somewhere Litecoin
cryptocurrencies. It's 25 cents. So people look at it, they see Bitcoin going up, they're like, hey, I can afford 25 cents, right? And so they were doing that and had no connection to this company. And so to allege that those people entered a common enterprise with Ripple and therefore it's an investment contract is just, it's taking absurdity to the highest level.
Do you think that they attacked the soft target? Do you think that they were looking to set a precedent against the tokens? Ripple made the mistake of incorporating in the United States. They went after people that they didn't think, like, who pays you? Like they never thought that, 60,000 coin holders would actually come together, communicate, and formulate some sort of defense against this. They thought they were going after a soft target and that they were going to create some case law that was going to change the crypto landscape. And then you came in and you took a dump on their front lawn.
Well, let me tell you, I think what we're talking about here, the people that you know in cryptocurrency, and what Pat said about people don't like these executives or they don't like the 80% being gifted and holding back 20%. If you read the complaint, even though they don't allege fraud, they use fraud-like language in the complaint. And it inflames people. If you don't like Ripple and you're like, oh, they're going after Ripple, I'm not worried about it. But when you read the complaint and it says that all XRP holders all joined into a common enterprise with each other and with Ripple, when they say that the very nature of the token itself is an investment contract with Ripple, then it becomes very dangerous. They're using, in my opinion, this case to set the precedent that you're talking about so that if they're successful, they can do what you were saying, Pat, and regulate all the cryptocurrency.
So let's go back to this SEC lawsuit that Clayton, you said Clayton did right before, the day before he was done, he filed this lawsuit. I think it's December 20th of 2020, December something of 2020, right after election, by the way, when this thing kind of took place. So the lawsuit is towards the XRP holders nothing to do with Brad and Chris? Is that what you're saying? Or are they going after Brad and Chris as well separately?
No, they're going after Ripple and Brad and Chris, but they're being so overbroad in their language that they're using that they're saying all XRP, even in the secondary market that's being traded, that all of that's an unregistered security.
So one of these 62,000, that's what did they get in mail? Did they get in mail something from the SEC? Did they get, how do they know they're being part of that lawsuit?
Okay, what happened was basically, and this was forewarned. Clayton, and I have a letter, I'm going to give it to you because I just got it from the SEC after fighting them for 9 months and threatening to sue them through a Freedom of Information Act. But a former fellow Republican SEC Commissioner, Joe Grunfest, on December 17th, sent a letter to Clayton and the commissioners and said, don't do this. You are about to harm innocent XRP holders and cause more billions in losses than in any non-fraud case in the history of this country. They warned them, and they still filed it on walking out the door. And so what happened is, just as that former SEC commissioner warned, he said, listen, if you say that XRP is unregistered security, Coinbase is trying to go public. They're not going to hold it. They're not going to keep it. They're not going to trade it. And so the intermediaries, the exchanges and the platforms are going to delist it. And that's what happened. And so Coinbase, Kraken...
Que teve cara que avisou ainda esse maluco do Clayton. Meu, não faz isso, meu. Não faz que não é que tu tá achando que é e tu vai prejudicar um monte. O cara foi lá e derreteu. Azar, ele tava largando, né, meu? Cara, por isso que eu digo, depois tem que tacar um processo neles pra eles aprenderem mesmo, cara. É brabo, mano. Imagina os caras que estão 4, 5 anos investindo na parada e vem esse maluco hoje de político, hoje isso, e vai lá e avacalha tudo, cara. E aquele dia o político é foda, né, meu? Bora pro vídeo.
Binance, Crypto.com, they all said, look, I'm not messing with the SEC. SEC says the token itself is an unregistered security. We're delisting it and we're not trading it. And so you have people... learned that way, and many of these XRP holders learned of this company named Ripple and these executives called Brad Garlinghouse and Chris Larson for the first time when they got notice on their wallet and Coinbase that said, pursuant to the, and it says, I can show you on my phone, it says, because of the SEC action against Ripple, we are suspending all trading of XRP. And let me tell you how that impacts people, Pat. I don't know if you've ever heard of I Trust Capital, right? It's basically an IRA for crypto, and it's the biggest one in the country. And they allow you to hold your crypto just like you can have the Bitcoin, Grayscale Bitcoin Trust in an IRA, right? Well, they basically have frozen all of the people's assets. So XRP, if they want to trade it right now, they can't. If they want to sell it because XRP goes to $5 and take that gain, they can't.
This is Robinhood GME all over again. Right. I mean, that's...
You can't buy or sell or trade right now.
Not on Coinbase, on those. There are a couple exchanges like Uphold that made the decision that said, this is ludicrous. Our securities lawyers say there's not a unregistered security. We're comfortable maintaining it. But there's like 1 or 2 out of 15, and the rest of them delisted. But those individuals who have that money, that XRP, it's frozen. So if they had a life-altering event, right? Their mother-in-law needed to go to a nursing home, and they needed to cash out.
Couldn't touch it.
Can't touch it.
Yeah.
All waiting on this lawsuit to happen.
Couldn't touch it. Well, that's how a lot of these organizations get negative reputation that they do. SEC types of organizations, what I'm talking about. But when you get a knock on the door from SEC, that's a real knock.
Yeah.
It's not just anybody knocking on your door. That's a knock you got to answer and say, here we go again. So how much money is Ripple right now? Brad, Chris, how much are they using with legal teams, especially the ridiculous legal team that they have? How much have they already spent? Do you know?
I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's at least $1.5 million a month.
Okay, $1.5 million a month what they're spending. Okay.
I mean, that's me guessing.
So in full, if you were to say right now, there's a few things that can happen, right, with this case. They can settle, which a lot of people are saying is probably going to end up settling, right? Let's just say it's going to end up settling. The SEC comes and let's settle, $10 million, $50 million, $100 million, whatever the number is that they settle with, right? Fine. Here's a check. You move on. And then the other one is to say they release. They just kind of say, look, we're just going to let it go. We're not going to do anything right now. And we're not necessarily going to settle with you. What is the consequences of both, both negative and positive?
Well, I think it's very positive for everyone if there is a settlement. And give you an example. You could pick the number.
Cara,
Ripple owns 50.
Cara, não pausou o vídeo. Que aí é pra judiar do cara. Cara, não aguento mais esse notebook aqui, velho.
Half a month.
Okay, $1.5 million a month is what they're spending. Okay.
I mean, that's me guessing.
So in full, you know, if you were to say right now, there's a few things that can happen, right, with this case. They can settle, which a lot of people are saying is probably going to end up settling, right? Let's just say it's going to end up settling. The SEC comes and let's settle, you know, $10 million, $50 million, $100 million, whatever the number is that they settle with, right? Fine. Here's a check. You move on. And then the other one is to say they release. They just kind of say, look, we're just going to let it go. We're not going to do anything right now. And we're not necessarily going to settle with you. What is the consequences of both negative and positive?
Well, I think it's very positive for everyone if there is a settlement. And
vai ser positivo para Ripple, para SEC, acordo, velho. Bota isso na tua cabeça. Eu acho que é acordo, cara. Não tem papo de vitória de Ripple, nada, é acordo. Eles não vão se queimar. Então, bora pro vídeo.
And give you an example. You could pick the number. Ripple owns 50 billion XRP. It's in escrow, and each month 1 billion gets released, and they use some of it, sell it, and then they put it back in escrow. That's 50 billion, Pat. Imagine if XRP gets to $5, right? They're worth $250 billion. That's significantly more than Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs. And so if that were to happen and the SEC were to be worried about the precedent, right? The way this case settles is Gary Gensler is afraid that an adverse ruling by the judge on fair notice, where she says, listen, you can't go after him. You let it happen for 8 years. You didn't do anything. There's so much unclarity in the world, in this market. You allowed them to do MoneyGram. You allowed it to go on Coinbase, all those things. If that happens, then that precedent would be usable by Cardano and XLM and every other altcoin.
Tá vendo aqui a pegada? As outras moedas estão tudo esperando, cara, para ver o que vai decidir. Porque o Gary Gensler já não tá mais preocupado com a XRP, cara. Ele já tá preocupado com os outros projetos. Essa que é a pegada do acordo, mano. Que o John Deaton tá falando. Te nutre disso aqui, cara. A XRP é uma merda. A XRP, o projeto não é bom porque o GR de MacLab saiu. Cara, tu tá vendo o cara que tá acompanhando o processo a passo, tá dizendo, cara, ele não tá dizendo todas as palavras, mas a XRP vai influenciar, essa decisão vai influenciar todas as criptomoedas, cara. Pegou a visão? E o cara que está fazendo Gary Gensler nos Estados Unidos já estão sabendo disso. Então eles estão tomando muito cuidado que eles vão acordar. Para as outras empresas não se guiar como base. É isso, cara, que está demorando. Pode ter certeza que é isso. Cara, qualquer erro ali, qualquer situação mal explicada no contrato ali de acordo, qualquer advogado bem instruído, até o próprio John Deaton, os caras que estão advogando para Ripple, pode usar esse próprio contrato para... Eles têm medo, cara. Tu tá vendo a complexidade do assunto, por que tá demorando, e os caras... XRP tá caindo. Cara, te foca nisso aqui, mano. Isso aqui, ó. Esquece o preço. Esquece, o preço vai vir depois. Esquece. Te foca nisso aqui. O que está acontecendo. Bora pro vídeo.
Doesn't want
that makes sense.
So if that happens, when that pressure point takes place, then you could pick a number. You could, if it goes to $5, for example, if that happens, that's they could sell 10% of the monthly escrow, which would give them $500 million. They could settle for $500 million. It would be a huge public win for Gary Gensler, because it would be one of the highest SEC.
Tu tá vendo ali, ele dizendo, ó, faz um acordo de multa, sobe $5 a XRP nesse acordo aí e paga, não sei o termo correto, Se ela bater 5 dólares, o governo pega 500 milhões de dólares para eles. Só se ela bater 5 dólares. E seria para o governo lucro absurdo. Mas o meu medo eu acho que é isso que é o medo dele. Dependendo do que ele fizer ali, assinar e autorizar, as outras vão tudo correr atrás e fazer a mesma coisa. Eles têm medo, cara. Eles não sabem o que vai acontecer.
Settlements
as long as they don't classify the token as a security.
But that settlement won't happen unless they do basically what was done for Ether in 2018 when Bill Hinman, then the director of corporation finance, said, you know what, we're going to set aside the fundraising in the initial years, but today's token is not a security. We would need some kind of declaration from the SEC or the court for that.
Só para ser que nem, só declarar que nem eles fizeram com a Ether, dizer, ó, é uma parada segura, pode investir, que nem eles fizeram com a Ether. A Ethereum está nesse valor por causa, possivelmente, dessa declaração dele, claro, além da competência do projeto, mas a declaração ajudou. Se eles fizerem isso com a XRP, eles já vão se auto-beneficiar. Mas e o medo?
That settlement to happen.
But to Pat's point, right now, look, that sounds well and good, and and for the record, I hold XRP, so I hope it does 5x. But right now, it's like 75 cents.
Correct.
So you're not talking about 250 billion. You're talking like 40 billion. Correct. All right, and the U.S. government has nothing but money and time. So from the outside looking in, I'm not an attorney, but this looks frivolous. This looks like somebody trying to lean on somebody. This looks like maybe, I don't know, like you said, MoneyGram, Western Union decided to get a couple senators in there and say, this is going to put us completely out of business. Like we make 25 cents. We make 25 cents out of every dollar transferred. These guys can do this instantaneously for no money. Like get rid of these guys. But what's to say that they don't just keep dragging it out, bleeding you out? I mean, how long can they take this? If they take this thing 10 years, is Ripple going to fight for 10 years? What's their breaking point before they say, okay, you know what, fine, we're security.
Close. Interessante a pergunta deles. Eles estão matando a gente no cansaço. Eles sabem que quem tem XRP tá grandão, cara. Essa aqui é a verdade. Tem gente que diz que é uma merda, nada contra o cara, sabe? Mas é bom, né? Lembra. Cara, eu gosto dele pra caramba, tá? Não tenho nada contra ele, curto ele. Mas são... Aquilo. Tijoca ele tem XRP. Ele tem. Deve ter guardadinho na carteira dele e ele não fala. Mas, cara, presta atenção nessa pergunta e vamos ver o que o John Deaton vai falar.
Close the thing down, reincorporate in Mexico with this same exact white paper and start over?
It's a great question. My settlement scenario was if that pressure point existed for Gensler, that it was going to, put him out of business regulating all
cenário de liquidação e a negociação para eles recomprar, tá?
the other crypto because of the precedent. If those rulings don't come down favorable for Ripple, then I don't think there's a settlement. I think it goes to verdict, and I think it's on appeal, and I think we are looking at a couple years of that process. At some point, Ripple could tap out and say, listen, we'll go with a certain designation. We can only sell to accredited investors now. There's ways to get around it, but I don't see it happening. I see it either settling, because of those rulings that come down, or it goes to verdict. And there was a verdict in Connecticut not too long ago where a jury came back where there was a digital asset, a small one, where the jury said that's not an unregistered security. And so that's where I think we're headed.
So let me go back to that, though. Because the point was we have two things, settle and dismiss, right? You almost want settlement more than you want to be dismissed, right? Because if they dismiss it, then that means, hey, we're coming back again and again and again and again and again, right? So there's a part of Brad and Chris and the 62,000, and it's 62,000 you're representing, but there's more XRP.
Of course.
So what's the number, 456? I saw a number like 450, 500,000 XRP holders.
Something like that.
Some number like that, right? So if they dismiss and they don't do anything, what happens then?
Then we have this cloud hanging over us. Yeah. And what Gerard said, I think when you had Kurt, I was watching that video when you had Kurt on, and Gerard summed up the unfortunate nature of what's happening in this country. He literally said, Ripple was similar to Bitcoin. They were just dumb enough to do it in the United States. I mean, that sums it up. We'll be right there where there'll be this uncertainty. And right now you have Gary Gensler saying, come in and talk to us. Come in and talk to us. As soon as they're using those interviews as a way to learn information about the company. As soon as you leave, by the time you get to your office, you have a subpoena. Brian Armstrong of Coinbase was trying to negotiate with them over that Lynn product. And all of a sudden, he shares with him all that information. He goes in and he talks to him. And then what do they say? If you bring that Lynn product, we're going to sue you.
Why do you think they did want to be the first to incorporate in the United States? They're obviously not dumb guys. Why do you think they wanted this fight? I feel like they kind of, maybe not the SEC, maybe not the way that they've gone after it, but I feel like they poked the bear, by kind of swimming against the current. And I don't know, maybe they thought they would skip the line and be the first that would become like some sort of, state-backed, as E.B. Tucker called it, Fed coin.
Right.
I don't know what the intention was. I don't know what kind of conversations you've had with them, but have they ever described to you what their thinking was with making this, an American product?
No, I've never spoken to them. And a lot of my critics will say, oh, he's a plant for Ripple. Look what he's doing. Never spoken to him. There was a report done by Fox Business on this story, and they said Deaton's no fanboy of Ripple. I don't got anything against him. I'm an XRP holder. I want them to be successful because if they're successful, the whole ecosystem grows. But I don't know why. A lot of people ask that question.
So definition of security. What is the definition of security?
All right, a security in the form of an investment contract. That's what's happening here. 4 things have to happen. 1, has to be an investment. 2, into a common enterprise. 3, you are led to believe.
Hang on. Investment, common enterprise.
Common enterprise.
Okay, you have to believe.
A reasonable expectation of profit.
Okay.
And 4, and you rely on the efforts of others for that profit. If you meet those 4 factors, and you must meet all 4, then it is an investment contract.
Give me the 4th one. So investment, common enterprise, reasonable expectation of profit, and you're relying on others.
Relying on others
to help make a profit?
To make the profit.
So let me ask you a question.
Yep.
If this is what the definition of security is, I've been Series 7 since day before 9/11, whatever, 2001 I've been Series 7, 66, 31, 26, all those licenses. Till today I have my licenses, right?
Your Series 7 can drink now.
My Series 7 can drink now. You're right. In 1 year, in a year it can drink. Not yet. It would have to drink at a party like what typically would do. But if that's what you're saying, how many people, and this is a very simple question, how many people buy XRP, Ethereum, or Bitcoin for its technology rather than as a source of investment?
That is a great question, because there are, and let me address this, there are a group of people I represent that use the technology. They go on the ledger, the XRP ledger, and they use it as a bridge asset. They buy casino coin. There's a decentralized exchange part of the ledger, and they trade assets, trade different currencies.
Yeah, it's like a pseudo dark web now, man.
And so there are users of the technology, but there's no doubt that there's a lot of people are speculating, right? Whether it's Bitcoin, Ethereum,
I've read
XRP.
as much as like 97% are speculators.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, so that's the part where, for them, they don't like that, right? I mean, you just defined. If I ask right now, and listen, most people are probably not going to say exactly, but if I ask right now, why are you buying Bitcoin? Oh, it's a great investment. No. Don't use that word.
Right.
Don't use that word. Like in as a financial advisor, what's the one word you cannot use as an advisor? Like the one word you have to be careful selling mutual funds or stocks or bonds. What's the word? The G word. What's the G word? Guaranteed. You can't say, dude, I guarantee you. The stock market with American funds, the last since 1934 when American Funds Investment Company of Act America came out, it's done 12.2%. Dude, I guarantee you can't say that, right? So that's the G word. So the investment word, you cannot use that with these technologies. Okay, number one, you're looking at it as an investment, common enterprise, reasonable expectation of profit. Most people have a reasonable expectation of profiting, and then relying on somebody else to make the profit. One can say that about all of them, right? So then the conversation becomes decentralized or centralized. Many will say, well, Bitcoin and Ethereum are the most decentralized product out there, right? Let's just say that's what many will say.
Right.
But then they'll say, look, Ripple is somewhat centralized. And they'll and dump, pump and dump, pump and dump. Everybody and their mothers was doing it, right? And then Security Exchange Act of 1933 and such an Investment Company Act of 1934 and all these other stuff, whatever these things started coming out, right?
Yep.
Right after the Great Depression. Was it a good thing? Was it a bad thing? Many will say it was a good thing because guys during that time capitalized because there was no regulation. They came in, they took money out, and, the rich got richer, and a lot of people got crushed that couldn't afford to lose that $3,000 or $40,000 or $100,000, or that girl you're talking about whose father passed away and insurance policy paid $75,000, and she put the $75,000 in XRP, and she can't take the money out, and that $75,000 is now whatever, $20,000, but she needs that money. Right. She can't touch that money, right? Okay. So the other part is what Draper said. Tim Draper. I don't know if you saw the Tim Draper interview with Gary 3 years ago, in 2018, when this interview took place. And Draper gave a system. I love what he said. And by the way, for people that don't know who Tim Draper is a beast of a guy, is who he is. Here's how he broke down the system. He says, bankers are panicking. He said this in 18. He says, this is their system. It's always been their system. Step number one, they say, this is nothing. Cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, NFT, nothing. You ain't got to worry about it. There's no way they can, compete with somebody like us where Jamie Dimon's got $7 trillion of money circulating through Chase on a daily basis. That's like whatever the number they say. That's a pretty big number that they go through, right? So he says, step number one, these guys are nothing. They're not going to make it. It's just a fad. It's going to go away. Step number two, now it's too big where you have to face it, okay? So what they do is bankers all get together and say, we can't make this happen. What do we do? Step number 4 is we sue them. Step number 5 is we bring our government friends to say, I need a favor. I need you to sue those guys. And he's telling this to Gary when Gary wasn't yet the SEC chair. He was only the chair of the CFT, Commodities Futures Trade Commission, right? CFTC.
It's like he's clairvoyant.
Exactly. Absolutely. That's what was so epic about it. I don't know if you've seen this or not.
What did Gary say?
It's powerful. So then Gary's trying, but I think we're already there. But I think we're already there. And then he says, and the last one is Tim Draper, freaking mic drop. He says it's make or buy. This is what everybody do. All the great companies, they either make or buy. He says you either have to choose to make a similar product, similar exchange, similar token, similar wallet, or you have to buy it. And that's eventually going to happen. So that's where we are today. Now, go to politics and bring politics on board. For 4 years, I've been saying, when people say Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, all these crypto, Patrick, this is what's going. I said, you have to realize there are those who are driven by freedom. Leave me alone. Let me do something better. And there are those that can't stand it, that you keep getting richer and more powerful. They cannot stand that you keep making money. We had Matt Zeller on yesterday, and we talked about Trump, and I hate Trump. I hate Trump. You know how angry he got, and you and I had lunch at Louis Bassi.
I like Matt Zeller. Yeah.
Oh, I do too. Yeah. We're bringing him back on board. I think Matt's great.
Yeah.
But you and I talked about it during lunch, and you said what? You said, why do you think it's such a thing about...
He broke him. Yeah. What was it? There's something about Trump that makes these people violently angry.
I said, because there's certain people in life you're okay losing to. You're kind of like, well, listen, I lost to my cousin. The guy kind of comes from the richest family, and he went to Harvard. I'm okay if I lose to that guy. He makes more money than me. He's more successful. It's fine. But then you have that one cousin whose mom and dad were, let's just say, divorced, and one was an alcoholic, one went to jail.
In the necessity for...
Love the philosophies. You can't.
Ledger.
Also instantaneous.
Ripple's XRP is instantaneous, 3 to 5 seconds. And when you had Kurt on here and he said, Bitcoin is like 7 transactions, BTC and Ether is 15. Ripple XRP, the token, 1,300 per second transactions and fraction of a penny. I've watched it. I can move $2 million worth of Bitcoin for a fraction of a penny using the XRP ledger. As you said earlier, the technology is awesome. It's absolutely, in my opinion, the superior tech as far as the network. And I think when you get to usage, XRP is ahead of the game.
That's where you win. You win there. That's my opinion. I may be wrong, but I think you win by me needing to use the product. If I use the product, it validates that it's not just an investment.
Here's the problem, though, guys, right? And this is the beauty of decentralization, and this is also, this is where just decentralization lags behind. Who's the Patrick Bet-David of Ripple? Who's moving the company forward from a marketing perspective? Who's out there creating the infrastructure necessary? Who's got the user interface so that everybody can get on their phone and within 3 seconds learn how to use the product and use all these different ledgers that we're talking about? Who's going to teach my mother how to use Ripple on a day-to-day? It was impossible to teach her how to use Venmo. It took like 2 years to get her on Venmo. You know what I'm saying? So that becomes the issue with cryptos going forward. Which community can come together and coagulate in a common direction, that they're going to have the Bitcoin ATMs, and somebody's going to have the conversations with Mutual of Omaha and say you should be using Bitcoin to take payments. Like who's out there actively selling, who's out there actively marketing, who's out there actively creating infrastructure in these usage things. There's a $1 trillion industry, $1 trillion industry in the future for people that, think about it. Think about the very first person who allows EasyPass to have Bitcoin and takes 1/10 of a cent of a transaction for every EasyPass that goes through every toll in the country. Right. That they're worth $1 trillion.
No, you're right.
So but who's doing that? Right now, who is pushing that technology forward? Who's the driving force behind that technology in these because these aren't like companies. They're like organizations. They're it's the beauty of it. It's the wild, wild west right now. There's no directive.
Well, two things. You'd be a great securities lawyer because do you know consumptive use defeats the whole case? For XRP or if Ether gets sued, the SEC in the complaint, they have an entire section that tries to say there is no consumptive use. It is all mere speculation. There are no users of the network. So you're 100% on point. And the problem, the danger, why this case is so dangerous is what you just said. Who's out there promoting it? Because once you are a promoter, are you a common enterprise? Are you leading people to a reasonable expectation of profit based on your efforts? Uh-huh.
If somebody was a drug dealer that started it, is it now a RICO case? Right. Are you now complicit in international smuggling? Like if you buy this stuff's the Wild West, man. NFTs, I saw, and you as a lawyer, I'm sure you've heard this as well. There are people out there right now.
Bacana o podcast, mas eu acho que ele já frisou que o pessoal tá interessado. Vê quanto tempo deu aqui, mano. 47 minutos, vamos ficar por isso aqui. Se tu quiser ver, vai estar aqui. É só tu digitar podcast John Deaton. Tu vai ter acesso a tudo, já tá a tradução ativada, cara. Mas fica com aquelas pegadas que eu falei do início do vídeo. Foi bem bacana, o pessoal interagiu bastante. Cara, vai rolar acordo, mano. Então relaxa. Relaxa e que as coisas vão acontecer. Vamos pensar positivamente. Tá, gurizada? Valeu. Foi tomado esse cafezão aí junto. Espero ter esclarecido algumas dúvidas aí do pessoal. John Deaton se posicionando lá no podcast nos Estados Unidos. E tá acontecendo, cara. Vai ser acordão. Então relaxa. Vamos deixar as coisas acontecer, mano. Valeu. Até a próxima.